Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Office Bloke Aidan.
Here we are, two of us.
Yes,
Patreon's your thing. Check out the link in the description below. Loads and loads of stuff on there. Full watch-alongs if you're into that. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Modern Family, F is for Family, Seinfeld,
Loads,
quizzes
mate,
on there,
loads.
loads of stuff on there. The Receiver,
Check
Quarterback.
Check it.
Yeah, check it out. What is the largest lake in every US state? Love a lake. Love lakesides and all that kind of stuff. I've been on
I'd like to live on a lake.
I've been to Lake Michigan.
Cool. Is that the biggest?
I think Lake Superior, I think, is probably the biggest, isn't it?
It's
Not sure. I think I've been to Lake Erie.
Nice.
So I've been to a few of the Great Lakes. But the one there that's in the background, that's Chicago, I think, in the background. And,
Michigan.
the Navy Pier there is absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Nice. Let's check
Summertime
it
there.
out.
Let's go for
Largest
it.
lake in every US state.
Right behind me is Lake Michigan, the largest lake entirely within the United States and one of the largest bodies of fresh water in the world. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, but Lake Michigan isn't only in Illinois, of course. It's shared by 4 states in total. So what are the largest lakes that are located entirely in just one state? Let's take a look at all 50 states' largest lakes in order from smallest to largest surface area. I'm Chicago Geographer. Don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more GeoGuessr and geography videos just like this one, and let's get started. Delaware is the first state and the first state on this list. Their largest lake is so small it's only called a pond, Lum's Pond, with a surface area of 0.31 square miles. Lum's Pond is also the first of many man-made lakes on this list, which I chose to include because the majority of states' largest lakes are actually man-made reservoirs, and they can be just as important to recreation and wildlife as natural lakes. Back to Lum's Pond though, it was built to help fill the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal's locks. Today, a very pleasant state park surrounds the pond.
Looks nice.
Over in Hawaii, they've got a natural lake as their largest, but this one presents an unusual case. Halali'i Lake is ephemeral, meaning it's only full of water during the rainy seasons. At its fullest, it measures about 1.31 square miles. This lake's remote location on the sparsely populated island of Niihau means it doesn't get many visitors. At least, that's what I gathered from the most liked review on Google Maps. Vermont also has the natural largest lake in Lake Bomazene, which feels appropriate for a state so admirably protective of its natural beauty. Vermont is also famous for the vast Lake Champlain, but that is of course shared with New York. Lake Bomazene, entirely in Vermont, measures at 3.75 square miles, and it's the first mainly residential lake on the list, with hundreds of homes circling its shoreline.
Be quite cool to live on there,
That's
right?
beautiful. Vermont's a beautiful state, man.
Yeah.
It really is nice. And it's, I imagine, during the summertime, I imagine that's a big hot spot.
Yeah.
An even more residential lake is New Jersey's largest. Lake
There we go.
Hopatcong is about 3.9 square miles and located among the far west suburbs of New York City. This lake is natural but was expanded by damming and merging 2 ponds.
I mean,
It was a
pretty
popular
big,
resort
yeah.
destination for well-off New Yorkers for many
Used to be
decades, but
47.
became more residential after the Great Depression.
Yeah.
West Virginia's almost entirely mountainous terrain doesn't leave much room for lakes to form, and sure enough, its largest lake is man-made. Summersville Lake is 4.22 square miles in area, a narrow lake formed by a dam along the Gauley River. It was built in the 1960s, and in 2023, a northern section of the lake became a new West Virginia state park. Rhode Island really outperforms its size by avoiding the bottom 5. The smallest state's largest lake is the Scituate Reservoir, a 5.3 square mile body of water that looks impressively large relative to tiny Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Along with several other smaller interconnected reservoirs, it provides drinking water to the majority of Rhode Islanders. The largest lake in Maryland is way out west in the Panhandle. Deep Creek Lake is another man-made reservoir, checking in at 6.09 square miles. Along its hilly shoreline is a good mix of residential developments and recreational areas. Visitors to this beautiful lake can check out one of the greatest town names in the country nearby, Accident, Maryland. Connecticut keeps us in the northeast for now, with Candlewood Lake at nearly 8.5 square miles being its largest. Its location in western Connecticut makes it part of the official New York City metro area, and is the largest lake in that region. This reservoir's southern end stretches into the city of Danbury, and it's a popular summer home destination.
That looks stunning, doesn't it?
It does look nice, yeah.
Connecticut's another nice state as well.
You like the northeast, do you?
Yeah, I do. I have a soft spot for the northeast and the south.
Pennsylvania seems a bit early on the list for a state its size. Although technically a Great Lakes state with part of Lake Erie, the largest lake entirely in
What's the
PA
river?
is Raystown Lake at 13
Doesn't it?
square miles. It's a reservoir snaking its way between the Appalachian Mountains. The lake was created in 1972 by a dam that flooded the original dam from 1905, which is now a scuba diving attraction. And rounding out the bottom 10 is another surprisingly large state, Colorado. Interestingly, there's no larger lake here than Blue Mesa Reservoir, coming in at 14.34 square miles. Formed by a dam along the Gunnison River, this lake is protected as part of a national recreation area, and for good reason too. Blue Mesa Reservoir is stunningly beautiful. Midwestern Indiana's largest lake is Lake Monroe at 16.8 square miles. Yet another reservoir, this one's in the picturesque hills near Bloomington and is one of 2 lakes on this list that I've been to. My friends and I camped nearby last year and hiked along this cool peninsula. It was unseasonably cold and snowing though, classic Midwest weather. Neighboring Ohio's largest lake is an interesting one, the very rectangular Grand Lake St. Mary's at just over 21 square miles. This lake is man-made and took 8 years to complete while workers dug the lake bed with hand tools. Once finished in 1845, it was apparently the largest man-made lake in the entire world. Despite its size, the workers didn't dig down too far. The average depth is just 5 to 7 feet. And here's the other lake I've been to, Iowa's Lake Red Rock. Just southeast of the state capital, Des Moines, it's a reservoir measuring about 24.25 square miles. An exactly 1 mile long bridge crosses the lake, which was really interesting to drive across with my friends on the way to our campsite. We also did take a quick swim in the lake. Kansans out there watching can be very proud that they beat Colorado at a geography category, as their Milford Lake checks in at 24.5 square miles. This one's located right next to Junction City and the sprawling Army base Fort Riley, providing ample recreational opportunity for residents. Like many other reservoirs, another main goal of creating Milford was flood control. It's been a good run of...
I don't know how they compare to the lakes we have in the UK, size-wise. I don't know where we'd come in with one of these. We've got some quite big lakes, I think. Some of the locks in Scotland, aren't they, quite big?
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, and I think
the Lake District's must have a big lake, right?
I think Windermere is the biggest lake in England. I'm not sure if it's the biggest lake in the UK. I think one of the Scottish lakes is probably bigger. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
Of artificial
Somebody
lakes,
should know.
but Michigan finally delivers another natural lake with Houghton Lake. At 31.32 square miles, this is a vastly popular outdoors destination, and just about every inch of its shoreline has a house or hotel on it. The lake freezes over in the winter and hosts one of the nation's
cool.
largest festivals for ice fishing and other winter activities.
Wow.
And it's right back to man-made lakes with Virginia's Smith Mountain Lake, a 32 square mile reservoir southeast of Roanoke. Created in the 1960s as a hydroelectric dam project, it now provides electricity and drinking water to the area, which has also become very popular for its desirable real estate and plentiful recreation. Arizona takes us southwest for the first time. The largest lake entirely within the state is Theodore Roosevelt Lake. This 33.58 square mile reservoir is part of the Salt River Project, a government utility which manages several reservoirs along said river that provide drinking water to the millions of central Arizona residents. I absolutely love the name of Massachusetts' largest lake, the Quabbin Reservoir, in the center of the state. Occupying 38.6 square miles, this is the main drinking water source for Boston and many of its nearby suburbs, despite being much closer to Springfield. The land around the lake is mostly undeveloped and only accessible on foot, in order to protect the water quality. And here's my home state of Illinois, but unfortunately I've never been to Carlisle Lake, our largest one, at about 40.6 square miles. Located straight east of the St. Louis area, it's formed by a dam on the Kaskaskia River and primarily exists for flood management. And of course, it would not be a true Illinois landmark without being immortalized in song by Sufjan Stevens. Mississippi takes us over 50 square miles for the first time, with its Grenada Lake measuring about 55 square miles. Several large reservoirs, including Grenada, were built in this part of the state for flood protection after the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927. This remains the most destructive flood in U.S. history, so I can see why they wanted to prevent it from happening again.
What do you reckon's going to be number one?
I don't know, I've not heard of any of these so far.
No, but I'm feeling like somewhere like Florida must be a state with like a massive lake.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of California, maybe.
Possibly, yeah.
You got to think of big states as well, like Texas has not been on yet, has it?
Yeah.
You know, I'm trying to think of where, I don't know, it's...
Maybe Washington and the northeast.
I think it'd be
northwest, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it'd be coastal, but it doesn't have to be if it's a lake, does it?
No.
Out in Nebraska is Lake McConaughey, or apparently Lake Mac, as locals say. A 55.78 square mile reservoir.
What about like Salt Lake?
Things
like that. What's the big one up in
Wisconsin or something?
Is it where what's the big mountain called in is it Mount McKinley? Isn't there a big lake around there as well? Is that Is that Washington State?
Oh, I don't
I
know.
think it is, isn't it?
It was completed in 1941 as part of a New Deal era project to provide hydroelectricity and improved irrigation to Nebraska. Kingsley Dam, which creates the lake along the North Platte River, was the second largest earthen dam in the world when it was first
Lake
finished.
Tahoe, I was thinking of.
New Mexico has a fun largest lake name, Elephant Butte Lake, which is right next to another fantastically named American town, Truth or Consequences. Name a more
What?
iconic duo. When the lake was filled in 1916 to 57 square miles, it was the largest man-made
Imagine that. Like, where are you from, man? I'm from Truth or Consequence.
Truth or Consequence, yeah.
lake in the world. It gets its name from a supposedly elephant-shaped rock formation that's now an island at the southern end. Atlanta area residents know Lake Lanier well, a 59 square mile reservoir northeast of the city. Several water events were held here during the 1996 Summer Olympics,
Yeah, that
and it
name's
remains
familiar.
a highly popular recreation destination. Since the lake impounds the Chattahoochee River that also flows in Alabama and Florida, it led to a tri-state dispute over rights to withdraw the lake's water. Tennessee has several large reservoirs that it shares with other states, so the largest entirely in Tennessee is Watts Bar Lake. Measuring about 61 square miles, it's a narrow lake following the winding path of the Tennessee River, which was dammed to create it. The dam produces hydroelectricity as a major component of the Tennessee Valley Authority's projects. And North Carolina rounds out the bottom half of this list, finally giving us another natural lake. Just inland from Pamlico Sound is Lake Mattamuskeet at about 62.5 square miles. Located in a very rural and swampy part of the state, the lake is
Looks
home to
huge.
a national wildlife refuge with thousands of migratory waterfowl arriving at its shallow waters every year. We are halfway through this video now, and I just want to quickly thank all of my channel members. I'm able to continue experimenting with videos and producing quality content thanks to your generosity. If you enjoy videos like this one and want to become a member, just click join down below and you can gain access to exclusive videos, behind the scenes, and so many more perks. With that said, let's get back to this video. Starting up the second half of the video is yet another southern state, Arkansas, whose largest lake is Lake Washita. Aptly located in the Washita National Forest near the city of
Look
Hot
at that.
Springs,
Looks
this
mint, doesn't it?
63
I know,
square
right?
mile reservoir provides everything one could want from a reservoir: hydroelectricity, drinking water, flood control, and countless recreational opportunities. New Hampshire joins the exclusive natural largest lake club with the impressive Lake Winnipesaukee measuring 71 square miles. It takes up a pretty big chunk of small New Hampshire's center, and it's in fact the third largest lake in all of New England. Lake Winnipesaukee was the site of the country's first intercollegiate sporting event, the Harvard-Yale Regatta, in 1852. Lake Cumberland is the largest in Kentucky, a huge reservoir created along the Cumberland River in the Appalachian foothills. At 79 square miles, there's enough water in the lake to cover the entire state of Kentucky in 3 inches of water. The lake is critically important to the economy of the region, drawing millions of tourists and producing significant electricity. New York's largest lake isn't quite one of the Finger Lakes, at least geologically, but some locals do call Oneida Lake the Thumb, given its chunky shape and thumb-like placement compared to the others. At nearly 80 square miles in surface area, this vast and relatively shallow lake is part of the historic Erie Canal. Many small lakefront towns dot its shoreline. You might have guessed Lake of the Ozarks for Missouri, but Truman Reservoir barely beats it by just a few hundred acres. Coming in at 87 square kilometers, it's a far less touristy lake just west of Lake of the Ozarks along the same river, the Osage. Like basically every reservoir on this list, its creation displaced several towns and communities, but today provides a wide variety of resources and benefits. Oregon kicks off the top 20 with the breathtaking Upper Klamath Lake, with a surface area of about 96 square miles. It's a natural lake, but a dam was completed in 1917 to help manage the water levels. Despite the lake's good looks, it earned a reputation for foul-smelling water in the pioneer days, driven by its high accumulation of nutrients and therefore microorganism growth. Alabama brings us over the 100 square mile mark with Guntersville Lake, a 108 square mile reservoir that occupies the northeast corner of the state. It's another lake along the Tennessee River, and like Tennessee's largest lake, it was created as part of the Tennessee Valley Authority's projects to revitalize river transportation, electricity, and recreation in the region. Finishing the New England states is Maine's largest lake, which is also New England's second largest lake. Lake Champlain takes the gold, but up in Maine we have Moosehead Lake, a natural lake of about 117 square miles sitting in the rural mountainous forests of the state. The small town of Greenville at its southern edge is one of the only built-up parts of its shoreline.
Mad that. Imagine going there like that. What breaks you'll get in these, right? I was just
Oh, yeah.
looking at coming to the USA in the next probably November now, the start of November, just in time for the election. And cast your vote, are you there? And,
right.
And it's I've been looking at the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee, and I tell you what, some of the like the views you get there and some of the settings, it's just absolutely it's stunning. Yeah, we don't get anything. We do get it if you got to go to Scotland, I think, to get the best picturesque sort of like scenery, I would say.
Washington's famous Grand Coulee Dam along the Columbia River creates Lake Roosevelt. At about 125 square miles, it stretches along a huge portion of the Columbia, nearly reaching Canada. The lake is protected as part of the Lake Roosevelt National Recreation Area, and Grand Coulee Dam is the largest power station in the country. Visitors to Yellowstone National Park have almost certainly seen Yellowstone Lake, the largest lake in Wyoming. This picture-perfect, all-natural lake measures about 136 square miles, and being 7,700 feet above sea level, is North America's largest lake at high elevation. A centerpiece of America's first national park, this is one of the most culturally important lakes in the world. Neighboring Idaho's largest lake is Lake Pend Oreille, an incredible 148 square mile and natural lake located in the Panhandle. This is an immensely popular lake for recreation among inland Northwest residents. As the 5th deepest lake in the country, it proved useful for U.S. naval training during World War II, and some submarine testing is still conducted here.
That's mad.
It's right back to reservoirs for a bit with Oklahoma's Eufaula Lake at about 159.4 square miles and located right in the middle of eastern Oklahoma. It's part of the Canadian River system and also has a distinct reddish tint from the red soils of Oklahoma. And incredibly, we have ourselves a tie between Oklahoma's largest lake and South Dakota's. Also measuring about 159.4 square miles, Lake Francis Case is the largest entirely in South Dakota. This state went absolutely nuts with reservoirs, by the way. Basically, the entire Missouri River has been dammed and turned into artificial lakes here. South Carolina apparently refers to its largest lake as their inland sea. Maybe locals can confirm or deny that in the comments. Lake Marion is a vast reservoir covering nearly 172 square miles. A giant dam spanning several miles on the Santee River provides hydroelectricity and forms this lake, which stretches nearly all the way to Congaree National Park. Nevada is home to very famous lakes like Lake Tahoe and Lake Mead, but those are shared with other states, so the largest lake entirely in Nevada is Pyramid Lake. At about 175 square miles, this is the first saline lake on the list and is in fact a remnant of a much larger lake, Lahontan, which dried up about 9,000 years ago at the end of the Pleistocene Ice Age. The second largest state, Texas, ranks just 10th place. The Sam Rayburn Reservoir does a bit better among reservoirs, being the 9th largest man-made lake in the US. It's, of course, the largest lake entirely in Texas at about 179 square miles in surface area and located in the far east. The Angelina National Forest protects wooded areas around the lakeshore. We return to the Midwest with Wisconsin's Lake Winnebago, measuring about 215 square miles.
Now that's what a lake looks like. I mean, a lot of them have been looking like rivers and stuff. That looks like a proper lake.
At the end of the Ice Age, when glacial meltwater was blocked from flowing into Green Bay. Today, this lake supports several of Wisconsin's larger cities, namely Appleton, Oshkosh, and Fond du Lac, with hundreds of thousands of residents relying on it for drinking water. California's Salton Sea, measured at 318 square miles in 2023, probably shouldn't exist. It emerged in 1905 when a series of poor irrigation decisions diverted the Colorado River's water, rapidly filling an ancient lakebed. At first becoming a popular tourist spot, runoff from farms and extreme salinity soon led to mass wildlife deaths and desertion of resort towns. This is a fascinating but very depressing case in California's environmental history. Montana brings us another insanely huge reservoir with Fort Peck Lake. Occupying nearly 383 square miles along the course of the Missouri River, it's located in an extremely rural part of Montana. Despite the lake's size, which ranks it as the country's 5th largest artificial lake, there's essentially no development on its shores except for the dam creating it. Minnesota is famous for its 10,000 plus lakes, and the absolute largest one of them all is...
I was going to say that. Minnesota, it's got like loads of lakes,
and
it's land of lakes.
I'm still thinking of like some really small states. Maryland hasn't been said, has it?
Yeah, it said Maryland before. It said it was in the panhandle of Maryland.
Oh, didn't
it? Yeah. I'm just trying. I mean, he's left 5.
Well, we've still got Florida to come up.
Did you say South Dakota?
I don't think he's done any Dakotas, has he?
I think he did one of the Dakotas before.
Was it?
Yeah, maybe. Just trying to think
God,
what
I
else.
forget which one's come up about 10.
Louisiana.
Louisiana's probably got quite a big.
Yeah.
Red Lake. It's actually very close to being 2 separate lakes because of these peninsulas,
Washington.
but as a whole, it's about
Said
444 square
Yeah.
miles, and for metric system enjoyers, that breaks the 1,000 square kilometer mark for the first time. Most
Georgia.
of the lake is
Said
part of the
Georgia.
Red Lake Native American Reservation.
Mississippi?
Geographically right between the previous 2 states, North Dakota beats them both and claims 5th place with its 575 square kilometer reservoir Lake Sakakawea. It occupies close to half of the Missouri River's path through the state and is the 2nd largest man-made lake in the country, behind only another Missouri River reservoir, Lake Oahe, which is shared by both Dakotas. The final 4 lakes are all natural lakes, and Louisiana falls
natural.
just shy of the podium with the 630 square mile
Is that
Lake
just above New
Pontchartrain.
Orleans,
Located
isn't it?
right next to New Orleans, it's crossed by a causeway, which is the longest
that.
continuous water crossing bridge in the world. Geologically, Pontchartrain is technically an estuary with its open connection to the Gulf of Mexico. Third place goes to Florida and it's Lake Okeechobee, with its surface area of
Heard of
about
it.
730
Yeah.
square
Isn't that like
heard
got
of
the
that.
most gators in the world or something? I
Don't know
think.
about I've heard of it.
miles. This ranks it as the 2nd largest freshwater lake entirely within the lower 48 states, behind only Lake Michigan. Despite the immense size of this lake, big enough where you can't see land on the other side, it's very shallow and averages only 9 feet deep. The Great Salt Lake of Utah is 2nd place for now. Recorded
What the
at
hell
about
is first, then?
950 square miles in 2021, this is in fact a record low for this incredibly salty lake.
I don't think you mentioned Oregon.
Oregon, of course.
I think I've not seen Oregon. Doesn't spring to mind
Doesn't
anyway.
spring to my mind either.
But we said Salt Lake, didn't we?
Yeah, you
Great
said
Salt
that.
Lake.
Yeah.
Lake, which has been subject to drought and water diversions in recent decades. Historically, it was well into the thousands of square miles. As recently as the 80s, it hit 3,300 square miles. For the time being, the Great Salt Lake remains the Western Hemisphere's largest saltwater lake and is of utmost importance to protect. And at last, we arrive
Alaska.
at the largest lake
We
in
must
the
have gone
largest
past
state, Alaska's Iliamna Lake. At 1,012
How did we not think of Alaska? That's
I know,
quite.
yeah.
0.5 square miles, it's the 7th largest lake in the country, behind only the 5 Great Lakes and Lake of the Woods. It's situated in remote southern Alaska, between the national parks of Katmai and Lake Clark. No giant and isolated lake like this would be complete without its own lake monster legend. Real or not, this lake is home to all kinds of fascinating wildlife, such as rare freshwater seals. Although very hard to reach, the scenery at this lake would certainly make the journey worthwhile.
Yeah.
And that's all 50 states done. I really hope you enjoyed this American lake tour. Don't forget to...
Yeah, it's good. I like to know about things like that. There's a few lakes I've heard of there. Some of them I've never even heard of.
No, yeah.
Don't know, some of the smaller
especially
ones,
the ones
isn't
we
it?
started off with.
Yeah, yeah. But it's interesting. I looked at I don't know why. I had no intentions of going, but I was looking at cruises around Alaska. You know, the glacier cruises. And some of the scenery you see on it just mint. It's
Oh
absolutely
no, yeah,
stunning.
that would be good.
And I was looking, and
The sort of
it's-
thing that you'd never expect to actually see. Do you know what I
well,
mean?
it's one of them things as well, you know, where you can. It's one of them once in a lifetime things. You probably head somewhere like that. And I was looking at it, and you have to be away for like 48 days and something like that. Or you have to fly to Vancouver and then get on a boat, and then it's like 8 to 14 days or whatever. And I just went, I can't be arsed.
Nah, Jesus.
Yes, too far. Anyway, good. Enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Hope you guys enjoyed it as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers.